He's Joe Torre, Major League Baseball executive, president of baseball operations, vice president of baseball operations. Good to have Joe back on the show. Joe, how are you?
I'm fine. I thought I was, while I was sleeping, I was promoted here. But yeah, I'm fine, Dan. How are you?
Well, do you aspire to be the president of baseball operations?
No, I'm doing just fine. I mean, it's an exciting time of year. I mean, I know as a manager, it had a different kind of excitement. But I'm looking forward to this series.
Did you manage differently in the World Series?
Yeah, I think you manage differently in the postseason because, a lot of times during the season you have 162 games and, you may be a little more patient with a pitcher or a player. You may not take a player out of the lineup because in the long haul he's going to help you, but you don't have a long haul here. And so and the guy that taught me that was Don Zimmer. I remember sitting in the dugout my first year with the Yankees in October, and Kenny Rogers was pitching in Texas, and he was getting roughed up a little bit early. He says, "Get somebody up." I said, "It's only the second inning or whatever it was." He said, "It doesn't matter." And at that point in time, it got my attention that you really need to, go get people if you feel they need to be replaced.
I'm trying to understand when people talk about the art of managing, because I know that we talk about in-game managers, a good, bench manager, strategist, and then, and you know where I'm going with this with Don Mattingly. Donnie gets ripped, and I'm a Mattingly fan, but I think this whole in-game, who's the strategist, the moves we make, I think what he did with this team on and off the field was pretty amazing this year. When you're on the verge of being fired, and then all of a sudden they rally, they get healthy. Now he's, sort of staring at a future that he's not quite sure if it's going to be in Los Angeles. What do you make of this situation?
It's tough. I mean, Donnie, I'm obviously a little prejudiced in that regard. He's a special guy for me. He was as a player, and he was as a coach for me. He was a guy that, was a superstar but never acted like one, which I think is a credit to him. If people are looking to replace you or they're going to sit there and try to find out, what they can blame it on. And, that's the issue. We all do things as managers that you say, well, maybe if this comes around, I'll do it differently or whatever, But, overall, with Donnie, he knows the game. He relies on his coaches, especially a pitching coach. We all did. And he doesn't panic. The game doesn't speed up for him. And that's the big attribute that you need to have as a manager, especially when you get to postseason.
But also, I think managing egos. And he had injuries. You had Yasiel Puig. You had, Greinke. There was so much involved in this. New ownership. How much of your job, because you were given credit as somebody who was great with the players, clubhouse, keeping it together, all the egos in place there. I don't know if people singled you out and say, you know what, Torre's a great strategist. I thought your brilliance was your ability to let professionals be professional and call them on it when you had to.
Well, you're right. And again, just getting back to the moves, if moves work, they're right. If they don't work, they're wrong. And but to me, it's all about people. I think maybe in this age of technology, we've stopped thinking that there's blood rushing through these guys' veins, and you've got to you hit it on the head. It's exactly right. You handle and you deal with people, and you have to get the players to play because it's their game, and that's the most important part. And again, he kept the boat from sinking early on when they were so far out that nobody even figured they were going to be close. So that's the name of the game for me as a manager. I mean, Jimmy Leland was great at it. His players, not that they loved him, but they respected what he did. La Russa, the same thing. And then managers do it different ways. But the most important thing is knowing who your players are and how to really reach each and every one of them. And I thought Donnie did a good job there.
He's Joe Torre joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Have you talked to Donnie?
I have. I mean, I talked to Donnie a few days ago. I called him and said I was sorry about, even though I can't root, I said I was sorry about getting eliminated because once that, when you're in the postseason, and I talked about 162 games, it's, all of a sudden it stops. You fall off a cliff. The game, the season's over for you, and it's a letdown. There's no question about it. So he's been managing with this situation of what's going to happen. It didn't affect what he did, but it certainly, and I can vouch for how it feels when you're in the last year of a contract, that some players are not sure that the guy making a decision today is going to be the guy making the decision tomorrow. So it's a little tough. Even though you may not change in doing what you do, you have players out there that, again, whether they like you or don't like you, are sort of torn.
The home plate collisions, Buster Olney had a report that we're getting closer. It's likely that we're going to try to eliminate home plate collisions. As a former catcher, how do you do that where you're fair to the base runner trying to get to the plate and the catcher who doesn't get wiped out when the runner has no chance of scoring?
Well, Dan, trust me, since Buster Posey was beat a couple of years ago, I've been talking about it with Bruce Bochy and Mike Matheny, and because Mike Matheny obviously had a number of concussions and sort of forced him to quit playing. But I agreed to talk to both of them this winter, and I asked them just to get their thoughts in order. And if something makes sense, that's going to, save guys from, getting concussed and all that stuff, I think we have to listen to it. The only issue I have is, when players make their turn for home and they're about halfway down, maybe three-quarters of the way down, and they see that ball coming in and, the player is the catcher is blocking the plate, I'm not sure you can sort of stop, and it's not necessarily a polite time where you stop and let them tag you. So that's the issue for me. I'm not sure, even though we're all concerned about everybody's health, that we're not going to make it important to score. And in saying that, I don't want to sound like I don't care, because there are a number of kids, and we get mail from college kids or their parents and stuff on something should be done, and I certainly am interested in doing something if again it doesn't compromise the game.
Well, I'm trying to understand what we can do to make it fair. I don't like when the runner has no chance of scoring and all it is just brute force. I'm going to try to get the ball out of your glove. Or another thing where there'll be a force at the plate and the catcher steps out and you have the guy who sticks out his leg and tries to sweep the leg there out of with the catcher. We've seen these collisions. I think a bang play is still going to be part of baseball.
Right.
I just don't think it should be. You're standing there. Now I'm just going to try to knock you down. I understand that, but I don't know how you're able to outlaw it. Will you vote on this? Is that what it's going to come up with?
I think it's going to be something that obviously we have to go to the rules committee with it, but it's going to be something that you need to have something to go to the rules committee with. The one thing you have to, and we all were taught. I was a catcher, and you put your left foot on the third base line and you give the play the back part of the plate to the runner, and then all of a sudden you get the ball, and we were basically taught to take that part of the plate away. So every time you think you're going to slide and have a piece of the plate, the catcher with the ball has the right to block the plate, and that's the issue. If there's something that if you have it way ahead of time, if you're able to do certain things that make sense, I'm not totally ignoring it. Again, when people get hurt, you certainly have to listen, because you don't want players to, certainly lose their careers. But we have to, try to figure out what makes sense.
Would you rather have the career of Mariano or Jeter?
Wow, and I mean, I never use one. I never talk about one guy without the other because both of them built that new ballpark in New York. And but to me, being a player, an everyday player, you always felt like you were involved. However, when you're a closer, you're about as close to an everyday player as you can be. And Mariano. There's one thing about Mariano, as opposed to Jeter. You're either good or bad. And Jeter could make an error in the second inning and hit a home run in the eighth, so that he can redeem himself. But a closer, you're right there on the plank, and it's either good or bad. And he's been remarkable, and nobody will ever be as good as he is.
Do you believe in clutch, that there is something called that?
Well, and I heard Al Kaline years ago talk about when a ball was hit to right field, and he was a right fielder for the Tigers, and it was a play at the plate, and he said everything was in slow motion. These are the types of players I think you talk about being clutch guys. When the game doesn't speed up for you, when you try to make more of it than it is, even though you want to accomplish something, you have to make sure that you keep everything under control. I do believe that certain guys respond better in pressure situations than others. Yes.
Do you lobby to be the commissioner, or do you wait?
Me, no.
You have no interest.
Again, my comment in that is that I enjoy doing what I'm doing. I love baseball. It's been my whole life. And if someone asked me to do something in order to help the game, if they thought I could help the game, I certainly would listen. But Dan, I'm 73 years old, and again, not that I feel like I'm going to quit any minute now. It's just that I think when you're thinking commissioner, you're thinking long term, and as I say, I'll do whatever it takes to help the game, but I don't anticipate or really have any vision of being the commissioner.
Last time somebody called about managing.
Oh, well. I get, let me see, I think I've had feelers every year since I've been out. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean somebody's going to call you direct. There may be, someone coming around the left end with a message from somebody who talked to somebody, that type of thing.
A third party?
Yeah, third party type of thing. But I, directly, it's probably been a couple of years.
What's your wife say about that?
Well, she says, right now, when I retired from managing, she was happy that, I was going to get me home a little bit more, and now she's asking me when I'm really going to retire.
The best piece of memorabilia that you have is what?
Oh, my goodness. Best piece of memorabilia.
Besides rings.
Yeah, well, the rings, that was something that I just... was the holy grail for me, and I still wear the '96 one because it was the first one, and then getting it and having it was so important. But I found something. My sister, my sister Ray, sold her house in Brooklyn, the house that I was born and raised in, and she came up. She says, "Do you want this?" And I look at it, and it's the All-Star Ball from 1965, and the names on that baseball, there are only two names that are missing that were on the team, and it was Hank Aaron and myself, because I guess I must have gotten it signed. And I said, I'll get Hank, and I'll sign it when we get back to Milwaukee. And it's sitting there, and it's in mint condition. It's unbelievable. And so I have it with me now, and I'm going to get it signed by Hank Aaron, because I think he's going to show up at the All-Star game at some point. at the World Series at some point. But that's the latest, and at auction I bought the 300th ball, the 300th victory ball, Warren Spahn, because I caught the game back in 1951.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That's neat. Well, good to talk to you. Hopefully we get a great World Series, and say hello to the commissioner. Thank you, Joe.
I will do, Dan. Thank you.
All right. Joe Torre, Major League Baseball, Vice President of Operations. Hasn't been promoted. He's just a Vice President.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.